Come on down to Lord Sutcliffe's Bakery, where you can get one of our famous loaves of Visceri bread. Fresh and buds now.
Fresh and
All right, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. I am your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. And today we are joined by the amazing TCGTed. How you doing, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Hey man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. I mean, it's a long time coming. This is
Yeah.
kind of like the thing is, you know, I even put it in the notes here, is like there's three guaranteed things in life. It's death, taxes, and seeing TCGTed at an event. And I try to say hi every time, and you know,
Yep.
we chat for a bit, and I'm like, I was just thinking the other day, I was like, I gotta get Ted on the show. So I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah.
And you know, we're gonna have a lot to talk about because, you know, your area of expertise, you know, it's popping right now. These
Yes, it is. Yeah.
the market is a little wild. So we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about the hunted because it is a fun set to open as well. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. But I do want to ask first, get to know you and where your journey kind of started. So how long you been playing trading card games?
So this is going to be kind of crazy, and it's like I think I've surprised a number of people with this answer, and that I've never played a game of Magic. I've
Okay.
never played a game of Yu-Gi-Oh. I started out in 2018 playing a Fantasy Flight game, Star Wars Destiny, and it had dice, and the game was really cool. And they end up canceling that game. So like that was my first trading card game ever. Like no Magic before that, just jumped into it, had some friends that were playing it, big Star Wars fan. So I was like, yeah, this works. The IP's there. Let's give it a shot. And then I just fell in love with TCGs. At that point, I always kind of knew I was gonna like TCGs. I'm a big collector kind of guy. So like I have a bunch of comic books. So it's like it was always like one of these things where I was like, this could be dangerous as far as a hobby, right? Like so I like pushed it off for a long time, but that Star Wars game got me hooked. They ended up canceling it right before COVID or like right around COVID. And then I kind of just sat there with like honestly like kind of a bad taste in my mouth for a bit, right? It was just like, ugh. And then COVID happened and you're kind of just sitting around anyways. And then a friend of mine was like, hey, have you tried this Flesh and Blood game? And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to like start collecting more cards and things. And I saw Visceri and I was like, that's pretty sweet. And then by the time I saw Visceri, I was like, I should get some Arcane Rising just to see what's going on. And then Monarch dropped, and I was like, chain. And yeah, I just like hooked, you know, the whole time. So yeah.
So all that being said, does this mean you kind of more were into the Siths, you know, in the Star Wars side of things, or?
Dude, that's hilarious because like no. Like I'm like fully I'm fully a fanboy for Luke. Like Luke is like my all-time favorite character, which is like a weird twist, right? Like you said, you would assume like, oh man, he must like you know, Darth Vader, you know, that type of themes, but no, like Luke is my like go-to. And what's hilarious, and like if you ask anyone that played Destiny, the Jedis were just generally really bad in that game. Like, they just like were mostly like I won't say unplayable, but they were like you were fighting uphill most of the time with them, right? So it became more of like, oh, I'll play Vader today, oh, I'll play Kylo today. You know what I mean? It leaned more towards the villain arc in that game as well. But I'm a big fan of like just the way, you know, the way Visceri, like his like design grabbed me like right away. And then the art, and then Monarch came out, and like Monarch was such like a leap
Yeah.
ahead, and like the shadow theme was like, well,
Yeah.
you're a brute guy, Levi guy, so you maybe can attest to this as well. But the shadow cards were just like, oh, that is metal.
Yeah.
Like I need to play these cards. So I actually started the game saying I'll just collect Shadow and Runeblade. Yeah, that didn't last too long though.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
did not last long.
I mean, yeah, you wouldn't be able to actually collect too much at that point, right? For a
No,
hot
no.
minute though, you got at least the elemental room blade stuff. But
Yeah.
that's pretty sweet though. I mean, now you start Destiny, and obviously that game dies. So and then you pick up Flesh and Blood, right? So
Mhm.
you've definitely planted the flag in the idea of you like TCGs, right? There's
Mhm.
no doubt about it,
Uh,
and you knew you
yep.
did, or you would. Is there any thought at that point when you got into you fell in love with Viscera and Chain, you started playing Flesh and Blood? Was there any thought to go out and try other TCGs, or were you like, you know what, this one's treating me pretty well, and I'm gonna stick with it?
You know, honestly, no. Like I like once I started playing Flesh and Blood, and like I said, I got Viscerai, and I like sadly I did Viscerai a little dirty, and I was fully enacted that Toy Story meme where like I dropped Viscerai in the garbage and like picked up Chain instantly, right? And like I played Chain, and it's like kind of I wear it kind of like a badge of honor, to be honest. Like I played Chain until he LL'd, from release to LL, all but one weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, I played Starvo. I played Starvo for a back-to-back ProQuest weekend, and that was it. And then I went back and played Chain, and like I honestly can say I didn't play anything but Chain except for that weekend. I did win one of those ProQuests, so like that is my that is my like honor roll moment. But yeah, I just played him straight through, and it was like devastating when he LL'd because I was just like lost. I was like, now what do I play?
Did you come
So it
running
was.
back to Viscerai, or?
I did. I played a little bit of Viscerai. I played Briar, right? I like. I've really stuck to the Runeblade um, class, and like I play Runeblades pretty much solely now. I played some Guardian. I played Ninja before, right? I like I said, I thought I was just gonna collect Runeblade stuff, but then it's just like actually I have everything, so it's like if I can play it, I'll sleeve it up. But yeah, Runeblades always come first for me, really. Um, but yeah, no, I've never thought about going back to like I'll play a game of Magic to see how that feels. Flesh and Blood has like hooked me so much,
Mhm.
right? Just like the lore is pretty solid, just like what we get, and then just the gameplay is like it's so good, right? Like every time I play a game of Flesh and Blood, I'm like, man, if I just would have blocked this card, or if I would have just blocked my armor at this time instead of this time, it's like playing golf almost. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever played golf. I guess I shouldn't assume, but it's like you hit one good hit and you're like, I'm back. I want to come back and do this so many times. But like 98% of the time, you're like, oh my god, this game. It's kind of inverse, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Yeah, no, I played a lot of golf in my day. 4 years
yeah.
varsity in high school,
Oh, there you go.
and
Yeah.
I it definitely does not show if I go out right now. But
Right,
but
but you only gotta swing like you just stroke it once, right? That good that like one time, and you're like, oh, I'm so back. When's the next 8 and 9 holes, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Flesh and Blood's like to me, right? I'll
Mhm.
play it, and like I've kind of moved away because content creation's takes up a lot of time, and I
Mhm.
really do enjoy. Like you said, I try to get to a lot of events. I enjoy that side of the game a lot now. So I'm not really grinding games to be like the best. I like Memphis was my first calling in a couple years actually. I
Oh
do
wow.
sides and stuff,
Yeah.
right? Um, but like, there is something to that where, it just kind of hooks me. It's just like, oh man, if I would have just blocked this card or blocked this armor, I could have maybe won that game, or, and it has it just like keeps me coming back, right?
Yeah, it really does, and it's honestly, you know, I think it's almost kind of unique to, I think, Runeblade, Warrior, and I think Guardian. If I'm like really gonna pinpoint
Yeah.
it, because I think those three classes, like it's really easy to be like, I am that class's main. You know,
Yeah.
there are. Listen, I play a lot of Brute, still play
Hmm.
Brute, but it's all Riptide now. But like,
Yeah.
Brute is a class that will test you, right? Like,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, you'll be like, I can't keep doing this to myself, and then you're like, I got to try something else. But Runeblade, I think people just love that. The sequencing, it
Hmm.
challenges, you on a different axis as well as your opponent on a different axis. So
Hmm.
that's pretty sweet. But I also kind of loved right now, to be honest, while you were talking about your devotion to Chain. I see Chain right behind you
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
wall, and I felt like the look got a little bit like darker when you said that you
Yeah.
played Starvo for one weekend. So,
Yeah, dude, it's hilarious. It's like it ended up being a hilarious bit. Like, and when I didn't even realize I was doing it for that weekend,
mhm.
right? But then like afterwards, and like he LL'd, and I thought back, and a local that got into the game with me and like a good buddy, we're actually traveling out to some ProQuest next weekend, so we're like fully we've been in the game as long as each other, right? He started when I started. He's like, dude, that's the only time I've ever seen you play anything but Chain. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're like, that's kind of crazy. And and I don't know if you remember back to that Pro Tour one in New Jersey. So I qualified for that Pro Tour and I sleeved up Chain. I
Very
was like,
nice.
I should probably like there was a very like decision of like, man, should I bring Starvo or should I bring Chain? And I was like, man, he could LL this weekend. Shout out to Pablo. You did take him away from me that weekend. But yeah, I threw some unmovables in my deck and we ran Chain back. So
Yeah, I
we sent him
mean,
off that weekend.
that was a fateful weekend for a lot of things, but also
Yeah.
poor old Chain. But you
Yeah.
know, I hope that we get some sort of. I know Vincent kind of came in, but
Hmm.
but there's part of like even I played a little bit of Chain when I first started. Right, it was like the
Yeah.
best deck, so you kind of like I just better learn this.
Right.
Part of me is like it would be kind of cool to play Eclipse again in
Oh
CC.
man. Yeah.
But also I understand like this is kind of a conversation that I've had with people where we're like, oh, why didn't like is Eclipse the reason that we didn't get a Chain replacement? I think maybe yes, because it does require you to do some broken things
Yeah.
for it to work.
Right.
So
Yeah, that card's like that. I think that card's gone forever. If there's like another Chain iteration, he can't do what he did before, for sure. And it's hilarious because like people kind of, I get the eye roll all the time because I'll say this, and I've said this multiple times with people, is that there actually hasn't been anything in Flesh and Blood like Chain since Chain.
mhm.
And like, yes, that comes with the power level. Like he was super powerful, but like you said, the sequencing, knowing your deck, knowing what you're gonna banish, that puzzle really got me hooked. And it's been somewhat hard. Like you just like I know why they can't do it, right? You can't have all those extra cards, but that was like such a fun puzzle to solve every time you played a game of Chain. So yeah, it's just like I've kind of been looking for it. Honestly, the closest thing I've got back to him was like pre-bonds banned Zen.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Like it was close. It was
Yeah,
close. I was
yeah.
like, there was some sequencing going on there. There was some figuring some things out, but I was like, ooh, this kind of feels a little bit like Chain, where you had to like know what's in your deck, know what you're banishing, things like that. But he's he that got fixed quite quickly. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Rightfully so, I would say. But
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I actually do think that Aurora sometimes feels
Hmm.
not, there's definitely that whole banishing thing that's not happening, right? But like,
Right.
I think Aurora just feels like Chain in a way to me, just because it's a rune blade where you would actually swing your weapon in the middle of the
In the
chain.
middle of your turn. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't happen. Yeah, that without that free go again, man, that doesn't really happen that often.
No, no. But now let's get to, a little bit about your content creation, right? You started creating this market content, which is,
Hmm.
people love it. You're doing great. 1,500 subs, awesome.
Thanks.
Where that stem from? Because you clearly have a love for playing the game, but that's a different realm. Talking
Yeah.
about the market.
Yeah. So I like I mentioned before, I kind of always knew that I was like a collector at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love collecting things. So once Flesh and Blood, and I think that's another reason why I got so hooked to the game, is that they like absolutely care about the collector side, and they like put work into making sure that the collectors are paid off in this game as well. So I started like, it was just like self knowledge, right? It was like, how do I collect this game? How do I figure this out? Like watching how the market works, watching how the boxes are kind of collated, making sure. And then my buddy Nate was doing the same thing, and I was like, we should just talk about this, because I started out breaking boxes just because I'm a degenerate, and like for a year and a half, my channel was just breaking boxes. I started out in Everfest, and every Tuesday I open up boxes live on YouTube. And then it got to a point where I was like, yeah, let's start talking about the market. And then just started like filtering through. And then now we're at the point where I'm, doing the little market minutes each week and stuff. So it's really born out of just me collecting the game and then trying to help others collect the game as well.
Yeah, well, there's something that I really appreciate about your approach to this kind of market content. It never feels to me like this like you need to do this or anything like that, like, because a lot of the market content out there will just feel like you are just like experiencing like a real, like, I need to do something in order to make money on this, but you give context, which I think is so important. And where did that stem from?
Yeah, so really, it comes back to, like I said, I was just breaking boxes, and Nate and I started talking about like how to shift into different types of content for Fab, right? And we noticed back then, it's been probably almost a year and a half now, and like market content was pretty light. And we just made an edict, honestly, to be like, let's just help people collect the game and not try to try to always, when we talk about a card or when we talk about pull rates or talk about EV of a set, like frame it in the matter of like, how do you get a new player, like that leg up, which like Flesh and Blood is a very easy game. If once you know, you can kind of like, not like game the system, but like once you know how it works, you can get little edges just like in the game itself, right? In the collecting. So when you start collecting, right, if you kind of understand that and like, okay, maybe I'll hold this card to the next set, and this is going to come back around, you can start like building up a collection quite quickly and building your deck quite quickly, right? If you know what to collect, what to hold, when to sell it. So Nate and I always tried to, come from that angle, provide context and like understanding of why this card's so expensive. Maybe it's so expensive because we're just starting RTN season, for an example, timely example. You don't want to be buying Warmongers right now type thing, because it's like they're the most expensive that card's gonna be, because it's like low inventory and people need them for RTN season, right? So if you don't have to have it, don't buy it right now. So that's kind of how we always try to angle all of our discussions. So
well, I like it, right? Because it can be overwhelming and you could feel like you need to do these different things. And in last week when Elaine came on, we kind of talked about the dev talk, right? And it was an awesome dev talk. We won't rehash it, but there were a lot of comments about, these decks are like $1,000. This is getting a little crazy, and like understandably so. We don't have to go back into it, but to have like context as to why helps people understand, and also helps them like not have to spend $1,000 every time a new deck is the best deck. You probably will have half the stuff already, and even like the newer stuff might not be so bad. Now the hunt is a little wild right now, but we're hoping for the high seas that kind of kind of evens out a little
Well,
bit.
the game, and like quite honestly, I kind of get it. I don't generally agree that Flesh and Blood is an expensive game for like a TCG player. Like, like yes, the cards can be expensive, but to pick on Warmongers again, I would say, if you realize if you just like a newer player coming in, you buy your Warmongers at $110 or whatever they are today, and then Viscerai LLs, and all of a sudden no one wants to play Warmongers anymore. And so now it goes down to $70. Yeah, the game feels expensive because you just lost $50 or so a card, right? You just lost $150 in value. And so I get it. And that's what I'm trying to help new players avoid, right? Like a newer player might not know that that's a RTN season even starting, or that Warmongers targets Viscerai and Azalea, which are both LLing soon, right? So if I can add that context and help a new player out, or even help a seasoned player that maybe just didn't realize, that's what I'm trying to do,
And that's very admirable, and it's going to be pretty wild when Warmongers isn't so expensive, which I think is probably going to get close to. But it's really cool. I appreciate your content, and especially what you and Nate do on the Buy List Pod. You bring some levity to it as well, which I always like.
Yeah.
And how is the podcast going? Because you guys are deep into quite a catalog of episodes.
Yeah, it's been going pretty well. We've hit some, with Nate, just life getting in the way. I was at Memphis, especially like you said, I try to go to so many events. It's hard, right? We try to record on the weekends. So we're in a little bit of a break right now. Not a planned break, but just like things aren't lining up. Nate's pushing hard to play a Nat, so he's at an RTN actually right now as we record. So but yeah, it's been going good. I think we're almost to 80 episodes. Like you said, we try to. I think if you watch some of the early episodes, it's funny. We like kind of more business-like, and then as we've gone on, I've kind of shifted the more business-like attitude to the smaller market minute videos, and then we kind of, like you said, have some levity and kind of goof around a little bit on the buy list, right? So, no, it's been fun. It's been a fun transition to that, like trying to find our voice on the podcast. And Nate's a good guy, and he's kind of a goofball, so it works out well.
Yeah. I mean, I think any podcast usually takes about 10 episodes or so to kind of find the rhythm, and I appreciate it, and it's a lot of fun. Now, before we get to like the fresh faves and kind of what I wanted to talk about today, you might not give financial advice. It's just cardboard, as you guys say. But I will ask, let's say I know quite a few people who collect a lot of Pokemon cards. They collect One Piece. Those are probably the two big ones, right? Of people that I know that collect stuff. As someone that probably has some expert advice here, at least in the collecting side of things, would it be worth it for a new collector to start getting into the mix of Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it's an exciting game. I think they're getting better at collectability over the last year or so, and it's not a linear thing. Like I said, I think LSS has always been very collector oriented, where they make sure that they're doing things for collectors. I think over the last year, if we look back to Rosetta, like the EAs, all of a sudden, like all the cards that are blinged out are like super playable, super powerful, right? So that's kind of ramping up, and I think that's going to continue. I think they finally, they've hit a stride here, right? So I think so. Yeah, it's just like the main thing is I would suggest don't just be a collector in this game, play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Even if like you go to just an armory every couple weeks, just play the game enough to understand the game, because that'll help you collect the game. Honestly, Flesh and Blood is still in a state of very much like what's playable is what's collectible.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really cards that are pure collectible cards in this game. Like if it's playable, it's going to be worth more, and that's like, so if you can give yourself that edge, and that's what I try to do with my videos, is like try to give that edge, play the game, and then once you understand it, you can start collecting more efficiently in Flesh and Blood. That's for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, when is my cold foil heart and cross strap gonna go to the moon? That's
Well, that's a whole nother thing, man. I get some questions about alpha, and I'm like alpha is so weird. It's like its own subsect, really. Like it's just, yeah. That's a hard one to crack.
I don't know. I'm just happy that I have it. To be
Yeah.
honest, like
Yeah.
I get like every once in a while I get a card where like, oh wow, this is for example, when they sent out the content creator like spoilers for Rosetta, I get the Felling of the Crown,
Yeah.
cold foil, right? Really cool. Those are going for a lot of money.
God. Yes.
But I'm just like, I don't know. It's really cool. I'm glad I got it.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. So I'm holding on to it. So we'll see.
Yeah. I cherish. I was lucky enough to get the content creator package from LSS, and yeah, definitely anything I get from LSS, that's in the collection, and it's not going anywhere. So
yeah, no, I agree. Now, we do gotta know about your favorite cards in the game, Ted. This is the fresh faves. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions. You're gonna answer them whether you like it or not. And the first one is, who's your favorite hero?
I kind of spoiled this one. It's definitely Chain. It's like not close, but I would say like Florian is he is getting there. Like I don't think no one's ever going to be my favorite like Chain, but Florian is such a fun hero. I would put him like second place right now though.
It's a fair answer. It's kind of interesting. I feel like the Arcane Rising, Crucible War, Welcome to Wraith, when people give a hero from those sets, that's Flesh and Blood boomer status. Once we get into Monarch and Tales of Aria, that's like Gen X or whatever. So you're a Gen Xer. That's all right. What's your favorite weapon?
So this one, as I was prepping to come on the pod, I was like, man, what is my favorite weapon? And like, the snap answer was like Thorn, but that's kind of a lame. Like, yes, I love Thorn, but like, come on, like Thorn is Thorn, right? Everyone knows that. And if you're a Runeblade guy, of course you would say Thorn, but it's actually Scepter of Pain. And because the Channel the Millennial Tree, Scepter of Pain combination in Florian is like maybe my favorite sequence of cards to play in Flesh and Blood right now. Just that scepter coming in for 4. If you let it hit for 4, it creates 4 rune chants, and then we just start spinning up, creating those rune chants. It's like massive psychic damage, man. Like people are just like, "Oh my god, I don't know what to do." I'm like, "Yes, rune chants are coming."
Yeah. The Channel Millennium Tree in Florian, just like is so good.
Yeah. It's amazing. Sometimes it even blocks for 4, so it's like this is awesome. Like,
oh my god, yeah. No, that's awesome. Like just looking at things with Channel Millennium Tree in Florian was like it was like, okay, obviously you could do. I liked the Scythe, Dread Scythe with that. It's just so cool. But like Scepter is probably just better, to be honest.
Right. Yeah.
What's your favorite equipment?
Oh, it's got to be Grasp. Grasp of the Arc Knight. First legendary. Like I had mentioned, I picked up some Arcane Rising. Of course, my first case had a Grasp of the Arc Knight in it, so we're off to the races right off the bat. Love that card. It's so good that it's like it's so hard to like power creep that card. So it's just like it's gonna be in Runeblades for the foreseeable future. And it's just so cool. Like I love it. I've been playing it since day one. So yeah, that's my favorite one for sure.
Yeah, it is hard to power creep that without, man. Like
it's so strong.
It's
so strong.
I mean, we're not saying. I mean, people are already talking about banning scab skin leathers. Well, not anymore now that ST came out and boots aren't playable anymore. But when they are, it's an affront to the world, I guess. But,
right. Yeah.
No, it's a great answer. Now, what's your favorite card you throw into your deck?
Oh man, this is a hard question actually. And like I think I'm gonna kind of, this isn't maybe the spiciest take or like just maybe not the correct answer, but Soul Reaping, the chain spec is like maybe my all-time favorite card, dude. Like I know like I can't just throw it into any deck anymore, but man, that card, it's the first card that I had James White sign for me at PT1. I told him that it was funny. He was signing it, and I was like, "Man," I was like, "We should." I can't believe you made this legendary, kind of like wink, wink joke. And he's like, "Come on, man." He's like, "This card's so broken." I was like, "Yeah, I know." And so it's just like one of my all-time favorites. I just have a non-foil Soul Reaping signed by James White. It's like, okay, yeah. So I
That's
just love
awesome.
that card. It's so cool.
That was the first conversation I had with a Flesh and Blood judge was about that card because I
Yep.
built chain, like just got into the game, going to RTN, the first RTN season, going to
Yep.
RTNs. I'm like playing, and I think my opponent told me that it didn't work the way it did. And
Yeah.
I was a little, whatever. It was my first time playing the game in person, so I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I go over to the judge after. I wasn't
Yeah.
gonna make a big deal of it. It was like I just asked the judge. I was like, "Does this work this way?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "That's pretty good." He's like, "Oh yeah." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great answer.
Yeah. Yeah, that card is definitely one of those cards. It's like that card and Creepers, where it's just like, hold on. Like anytime you're playing somebody new, and since I played Runeblade for so long, someone's like, wait, what does Creepers do? Or like, what does Soul Reaping do? But like, yeah, it's actually that good. Like it's always a question. Like, you're cheating, right? Like, no, that's how this works. So
Oh man, I love it. Now, if you were in the world of
yeah.
Wraith, what class and talent would you be?
This is a good question, and like another total curveball for you, because I'm definitely not as emo or edgy enough to be a Rune Blade. I would definitely be a mech in
Oh,
metrics.
nice.
I'm an automotive engineer by trait, so like mechanical things, making things, like working on cars, like designing cars. I would definitely be a mechanologist. So yeah, I think that's like where I'd have to be, because like I'm just not cool enough to be a Rune Blade or a wizard or so I'd just be that dude working on like cars and metrics at a mechanic shop or something, wrenching away.
Well, listen, I mean, if I know anything about metrics, they need it. They need good
Yeah,
mechanics. So,
yeah, yeah.
no, totally worth it. Now, what is your currently, as it stands, greatest set of all time?
I'm actually gonna say Rosetta. I think Rosetta is like hands down, kind of checked all the boxes, had great collectability, had great heroes right out of the box. Acilio is like my poster child for like LSS. This is like an amazing hero. It's not super broken, but like it has a undying love for it. Like you'll just find people that are like, I'm just jamming Acilio no matter what. Like he's not A tier. Kind of how I feel about Florian. And then you have Aurora. She's like tier one.
Mm-hmm.
So that also helps a set. Yeah, just like awesome collectability, and like they just did a good job all around with it. I think the four heroes are amazing, and it played really well. Limited was great, so I would have to say Rosetta.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty common answer as I continue to ask this question, I think, because it
Hmm.
was really a banger. I think there's two schools of thought. It's like, Rosetta, like, is Rosetta heavy hitters or like Welcome to Wraith so far? I
Yeah,
feel like
right,
we get some
yeah,
Crucible War, in there,
yeah,
for like the people who love Arknight Shard. Shout out Mr. Viz.
yeah,
But, I
yeah.
understand. Now, let's talk about the Hunted though,
Hmm.
because the Hunted's out. We're in it, and there's a lot of talk about how good the heroes are. They're pretty
Hmm.
good. It's not
Hmm.
overpowered. This seems to be a pretty even set. But I will say, I wasn't going to buy a lot of the set, but I wanted to get some of it because there are some cards that I needed, and
Yep.
I am taking a fondness to Fang,
Mhm.
and I couldn't help it. Very cool, right?
Yep.
And
Hey man, Shredder's cool, dude. Like he was literally
yeah,
Fire Shredder.
yeah,
Like
it really is.
yeah.
So I get a case and I'm opening it and I'm like, getting these pulls like really good. You just feel good
Mhm.
when you hit stuff in this set. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you have felt the same way. Like opening this set feels like really good. Like I don't want to talk about like the prices of these cards right now, but like
Yeah, yeah.
actually hitting things in this set feels so good.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've had I've been opening the Hunted the last 2 Tuesdays on YouTube. We opened 6 cases the first stream, which is like a crazy amount, right?
Yeah.
Like normally I keep it to like 2 cases. We're going for like an hour and a half max. Ted needs to go to bed. But we're starting early. Like the hype is real on these box breaks, right? And we opened 5 cases last Tuesday. So like I've been cracking it, and I agree with you. You know, there is something really cool about this set where there's like little pulls in every little slot, right? There's rare EAs, there's Ignite has an EA, Kiss of Death has a cofoil, like all this stuff that's just sprinkled throughout the whole set. And then like the topper, like the icing on the cake is like Shelter of the Storm EA, Command and Conquer, Quick Dodge Flexors, dude. Like they just were like, oh yeah, by the way, we're just gonna put these awesome generics in there too. So it's like even if you don't like these heroes, you might still want to open some of this, right? Try to hit those flexors because you're gonna need a pair, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a crazy set.
Yeah, and this is something that maybe they possibly learned. Well, I think they've learned a lot from Bright Lights, to be
Yeah,
honest. But
yeah,
they did try to throw some stuff in there, like the spring tunic, which I had forgotten was even
yeah,
in Bright Lights. But like
yeah,
spring tunic's in Bright Lights.
yeah.
For anybody looking at Bright Lights on the shelf somewhere, collecting
Yeah,
dust,
collecting dust.
it's in
Right.
there. It's
Yeah.
waiting for you. No,
Hmm.
and they definitely kind of learned. It's like, well, it's not just enough to have like one staple. You got to have like something like Command and Conquer, different art, which is pretty sweet.
Hmm.
And then Shelter from the Storm, should have been a Majestic or not. I don't know, but like it's
Yeah.
really good, and I'm glad that it exists for sure.
Yeah.
I would like to see more of them out in the in the world,
Right. Yeah. Yep.
but it feels good. You hit those, even if you hit that on like just the regular art, you're like, oh, this feels good because it's a playable card, will be probably
Hmm.
forever. It's like
Yep.
upgraded Sink Below, and then you are hitting. You mentioned those EA rares. Like I
Yeah.
had to like double check that this was like kind of a thing because I saw it and
Yeah.
I was like, I think it was one of the legendary
The drop of dragon's
specs.
blood.
No, I guess not the like the no, no I'm thinking of the full art or whatever, the
Oh,
extended art.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
The golly, I got one for each. I got the Syndra one and the
Like
Fang
Hunt's
one.
End and
Yeah.
Ignite, right?
No, I was thinking the rare ones.
Oh,
Geez.
yes, yes.
I'm the specs, right? I'm trying to think what that came
Yeah,
out.
I'm losing.
Yeah, I
I'm
gotta look
blanking
back.
as well.
There was Fire and Brimstone, which was
Yes,
the
Fire and
Fang
Brimstone.
one,
Yeah.
and then there was golly, what was Syndra's? Syndra's was Wrath of Retribution.
Yep.
Both cards are really
Yep.
good,
Yep.
but those had like extended art, like full art treatments or
Hmm.
whatever. And I had to look. I was like, "Is this a hit?" And I was like, "This is a hit! Like that's
Yeah.
so cool." So like, I found myself like really enjoying opening it, and like even I mean, I had a pack the other day that was a card that probably shouldn't be expensive, Hunter's Clave, and then also Shelter from the Storm in the same pack, and I was like,
Yeah.
pretty good.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, we take that. Now,
Hmm.
what are some things you've loved from the set, and what are some things you'd like to see improved as we kind of, you mentioned that LSS has kind of hit their stride here. But,
Yeah.
Nothing's ever 100%. We can always improve upon stuff. Is there anything you'd like to see there?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I think just the spread outness of the hits, like you said, there's rares, there's EAs, there's majestic EAs, and I think they built upon that in a meaningful way from Rosetta. Like Rosetta, we saw that with like some of the EAs like Truce and Call to the Grave, right? And you're like, wow, these are really special cards. So I like to see that. I honestly do like to see the generics. You can't have generics at this power level in every set, right? Like, let's not kid ourselves here. But like, make it worthwhile for someone that doesn't play those heroes to maybe pick up a box or two, right? I think that's very a nice evolvement or like evolution. But like as far as something that I would like to improve, and again, I this isn't like I'm not like this isn't something I'm like, oh man, this is a bummer. But it's just like something I would say is just like maybe try spreading out the marvels a little bit. The marvels in this set are just all arachnes. It's literally it's all arachnes except for the fealty marvel.
And
the fealty marvels,
cards, right?
Oh, and then the hero cards, yes. Yeah. So you have the young and light, but like everything outside of that is just, the 6 arachnes, and then the arachnes, the old arachne or Slippy and Huntsman and stuff. So it's like if you're not an assassin guy, you're like, well, it's good trade fodder, which is never a bad thing. But like, if it was like if we got if we got like a generic marvel, I don't know how they would do that, but just like then you would be like, oh, okay, now it's a little bit spread out there. That's my only thing, but it's a small gripe, to be honest, because they,
Yeah, it is a little tough, I do think. It's reminiscent of Uprising, I guess, in a way, where we had all those Marvel Dragons, which in hindsight was probably a really good idea, right?
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
And probably it's a good idea for the Arachne fans out there as well, although they probably only really care about in general it's going to be Marionette and the Agents of Chaos. I think I would love I like that we got the Marvel for Huntsman, but like also give us some support for Huntsman.
Right. Yeah, he got just left in the dirt. He kind of just got left behind again, huh?
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting. Yeah, no, I agree. I think spread it out, and I'm trying to think about what
my comp would be, and this is like, I guess my argument would be, so the Misveil, I think, did a really good job of kind of, so the Marvels are very much a set again, right? You have your Marvel cheese, but every hero in the set played them.
Yeah.
So they were like they were wanted by 3 heroes right off the bat. Where the Agents of Chaos, if you're playing Marionette, you want them. But if you're playing Fang, you just want the Fang Marvel, and then you kind of move on, right? Or maybe a fealty Marvel too. Which, as I talk through this is probably a very hard thing to do. So I'm like asking a lot. This is like definitely a stretch goal here for LSS. Yeah. So, but like, I just always, I look back to Misveil and I'm like, man, that was pretty sweet how it wasn't just bling out Dromai. It wasn't just bling out Arachne. It was like all 3 of these heroes can be blinged out with the Marvels in the set. So.
Yeah. There definitely could have been, I think maybe the only comparison like of what they could have done here is a similar treatment to the codexes, right? 2 of the classes wanted them, right, from outsiders. I don't know what good targets would have been for this set,
right?
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's really hard to do, right? But
yeah, we'll let them figure it out. But no, I do think that's probably a good thing, and I'm really interested to see what the High Seas brings us, because we don't know anything about it except when it's coming out and the name of it.
Right.
We don't know what classes we're gonna get. I guess I might as well ask, what do you want out of the High Seas?
I think this is interesting, right? I don't expect, like, personally, it's like I always joke around about it. It's just like, yeah, there should probably be a Rune Blade in there. But I know that's unrealistic. I don't know, man. I think it's actually like just the idea of Flesh and Blood pirate themes has me pretty amped up. Like I don't know how to explain it. I'm just like I've never. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a really cool theme in general, and it like really just fits it can just really fit into the world of Wraith so well. And I think like one indication is just like how cool Trench looks. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, dude, if we can just have a whole set that looks like Trench, like that vibe, I'm totally in. Like I don't really ever played Rangers. I don't really, if Rangers are in the next set, possibly, it's like I might be picking up Ranger, right? Like I need some pirates. I need some pirates in my life.
Well, listen, I never thought I would ever play Ranger, and then Riptide came out. And I think it was really the fact that like I don't really ever have to activate my bow unless like I need to. That's pretty nice. And he does just like such cool things. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, yeah, the whole pirate theme. And they have the opportunity here to make some really cool looking cards like Trench. Mm-hmm. Also, maybe some Trench like synergies would be kind of neat. Like, maybe just another piece of equipment that has like a one resource activation would be.
Yeah.
Send that away and do this. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Now, I thought it'd be fun just because I've been thinking about it to name a couple pulls, maybe top 3 from the hunted so far that like we've pulled or that we want to pull that you're just like, man, this feels cool because there's so many good hits in this set. Yeah. Let's rank them. What are your top 3 hits in the hunted so far?
My top 3 has to be, and again, I'm going to lean into a little bit of the generic side here, is number 1's the EA Command and Conquer. Mm-hmm. I've been kind of publicly, I think I've said it on the pod a couple times. I've been the OG art of Command and Conquer has not been my favorite art in the game. So then when I saw Federico, my favorite artist, got to redo Command and Conquer, I was like, dude, okay. So I haven't pulled one yet, but I definitely need a play set of those Command and Conquers for sure. Second, it's going to be the blood spattered EA. Like, I don't know if you've seen, like, if you're listening or if you haven't yet, Tommy, go look up the actual like art for that card. Mm-hmm. That card hides so much of that art, and it is beautiful. So just like I don't play Ninja, but that card is sick. I just love that art so much. The blood spattered vest. And then the third would be the EA shelters, man. Like, how do you beat that, man? It's so good.
Yeah, that's like some real swag, right?
Because,
yeah. I mean, just like the Command and Conquers, right? Like, yeah. But like Command and Conquer already had some swag. You could show up with the Fable, or you can, I mean, be even crazier. Show up with the heavy hitters, whatever it was.
The Kasai,
the Kasai one. But yeah, the shelters are that's some real swag. That's a pretty good. I mean, we share one top 3 here. The blood splattered extended art, so sick. I pulled one. Yep. I was like,
ooh, nice.
Because I pulled a regular rainbow foil and then all in the same case, regular rainbow foil and the extended art, and I was like, this is different. I'm like,
yeah, right.
And it does look so sweet, and that's it's a hybrid card, right? So I think Assassin could play it.
Assassin plays it too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not big on Ninja, but maybe I'll build some Slippy kind of. Seems
right.
Fun.
Yeah.
And then for me, the Kabuto, the I guess is that extended art, full art? I don't know the difference. What they say.
Yeah, I think LSS technically calls them like micro tech boxes, right? That would be like I always just call them EAs because micro text box doesn't really flow off the tongue. but yeah, I think they technically call them like that micro text box. And I agree with you, man. Like anytime, I think the first time we ever saw that was on Ramparts.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
And I was just like, I want all those cards. Like the equipment with like the full the small text box is like always amazing. And that card, the Kabuto, is like, yeah, it's so good.
So cool. It's like gonna be like one of those cards that just lives in the sideboard for like really specific matchups, but like you're gonna be like, oh, thank God, I can bust this one out. You're like, here we go, and it just looks so cool. It's just like it looks really regal and just like kind of vibrant, which like a lot of this set didn't have as much. It was like very dark and red and
very red.
Yeah,
yes,
which like I think is cool too, especially when it comes to my next one, which is the micro text box of Hunt's End. There's just something about it. You could feel the story coming out of that card, and just like you can put yourself in that scene like it's a movie. And especially when you get that micro text box, you're like, oh yeah, this is so sweet. And like also the card itself is just kind of like it's not as, or it's more powerful than it seems, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, this all it does is give something like +4, and then you're just like, oh no, it's like a 0 for 5 with go again or something like that. You're just like, that's pretty sweet. So and then one honorable mention is, I gotta remind myself of the name, but the Thick Hide Hunter.
The
brute card. That's like,
it's so good. Yeah,
it's just cool, and like there's only like 6 words on that card anyway, so why not do the micro text box for it? So really sweet, just some great hits. Now we do have some listener questions, Ted, if you'd like to answer them.
Yeah, sure.
You don't have a choice, actually. You could just say no comment. Now, these come from the Buds Discord. It's free to join. Anybody can join. It's in the show notes below. The first one comes from not just Fresh and Bud's lore expert, but I would say all of Flesh and Blood's lore expert, Dead Summer Art, who asks, if you were to create your own TCG, what sort of game would it be and what world would it be set in?
Man, so I did sneak a peek at these yesterday when you posted them up. So I've been stewing on them for a bit. I have to say, man, the couple that we got here are like not easy questions. These, so like I'm sure this TCG probably exists somewhere, but I was thinking going back to like I answered that mechanologist question, right? Like what hero I'd be. I've always really liked the build up board, like building something, right? And so I think if I were to like try to envision a TCG, it would be where you're kind of building to some kind of equipment or like car or like, almost kind of like Max does with the mech, but it's more like you have to like play these cards out, then they assemble. I guess Teklo does it a little bit too. But like that was like your sole mission in the game, and it's like whoever builds their thing first probably wins, something like that. It would be more mechanically driven type TCG.
I don't know. I mean, that sounds cool to me. I've been messing with some just like free time design, and I'm just like, and I like the idea of like who could build something first or do something first rather than like combat, because like there's no shortage of combat games. Like we see so much of it. And even just that kind of reminds me of like, not reminds me, but like it'd be kind of cool probably for maybe not so much of a complex game, but like I bet Lego could come up with something.
Right.
Where like, you gotta play the card and then you get the piece and then you start building.
Right.
That would be kind of sick to get like kids into the game too. Although I feel like I build just as much Legos as kids these days. So and I know Ethan does too as well out there. Now Capolo asked, if you were given another heavy hitter of a question. If you were given a multi-million-dollar budget to do your own project for LSS to expand the Flesh and Blood IP, what would you do?
So this is an interesting question. And when I first read it, I was like, man, I don't like that's like that is a pretty deep. That could be. I can go anywhere with this. But I thankfully I used to play 40K Warhammer, right? And talk about lore, right? That game, if you're familiar with it, just has like maybe the deepest lore of any fantasy like sci-fi game of all time. And when I played it 10 years ago, all the lore came in books. Like you had to read novels. Like they were very anti-digital, even back in like 2013. Well, fast forward to 2025, and all of a sudden, Games Workshop, the developer of the game, is like full tilt into digital like media now, and they've come out with like episodes on Amazon Prime and stuff, and there's just these amazing little shorts. And I think if I were like given a bucket of money by LSS and I was like a director, because I'm not creative, I would go and like hire people to do these little vignette shorts. Because like I think really we just need like give me like a minute and a half vignettes like once a week for the first like 5 weeks of a set. And it's like maybe just like a cartoon or like it doesn't have to be fully digital rendered or anything, but just give us like these little like 5 minute or like minute things that all coalesce into like 6 minutes long and shows us how they're hunting Arachne across Wraith. I think like that would be the start, and maybe that doesn't cost millions of dollars. It might. But yeah, I would just start doing little things like that and then build up to like not like full episodes, but like, more digital lore, like videos, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that comes up quite often. It's like we could always use more lore, right? Like it's and it is kind of when you were talking about 40K, I was just like, oh yeah, you were saying how they were anti-digital. Now there's like 30 like apps I can download of just different games I can play for Warhammer, which is crazy. But
yeah, and it's like and I think we all want more lore because honestly the world that they're building is like they paint us this picture and we know that there's more in there, right? There's like we see these their art on their card is very purposeful. We like see these little like glimpses in and we just want some backstory, right? And it's just like, come on, we know it's there. And I understand why it's not happening, right? Because it's honestly like multi-million dollars is probably what we're talking about here. It's not a small undertaking. So like, yeah, there's just this like, every time I see a set, right, I'm like, man, there's so much story behind this. Like, if we could just get this on paper, get this in a video, it would be great. And I'm sure it's coming. It's just, it just takes a whole team of people, right? So
yeah, you got to hire people, and that takes time, and it's it should be interesting. I mean, I think we'll get to that point because
we'll get there.
Yeah, because eventually it will get to a boiling point where it's like they need
you
to
have
do
to,
it, right?
Yeah.
So for the game to kind of like get like
keep growing,
like some runway, right? You just need it. So interesting. Next question comes from Nathaniel from Bold Brew Games, who asked, if you could make your own card, what class or talent or both would you want it in and why?
Oh man, if I can make this is again easy here. This would have to be a Runeblade card, and I think as much as I love Florian at the moment, it would have to be a Shadow Runeblade card. Like as I had mentioned before, just the art and tone of Shadow Runeblade cards drew me in. So it's like I would just want to see the art that I could come up with, that it would be on that card. I don't know what it would do. It would probably be some non-attack that gives me rune chance somehow, right? Like it would just be broken at first, and then Brian would have to be like, no. But yeah, it would definitely be a Shadow Runeblade card, 100%.
Oh man! Well, now you're just gonna have to win the next Dev Challenge or whatever it was that Brody won.
Dude, that was a gauntlet, though. Like, what are we talking? Like Brody, man. Like, good luck beating that kid.
Yeah. That's tough, but.
hmm
Geez, that would be cool. Now, that's going to do it for the show. This has been a lot of fun. Ted, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
same,
coming
man.
on. I really appreciate it. Can you please plug everything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, it's TCGTed everywhere. Blue Sky, Twitter, YouTube, TCGTed. Like I said, Tuesdays we go live every Tuesday, most Tuesdays, and then on the weekends I have market minutes, which are easily digestible 10-minute market videos, and then we have the buy list pod that comes out somewhat weekly.
Cool.
Got to keep you guessing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, please do check it all out, and thank you so much. You can continue to find me on everything at freshbudspod, mostly Blue Sky these days. Give the old like, comment, subscribe of the YouTube. We're getting there. We are over 1,000 subs. It's pretty sick. It's very exciting. Discord, the Buds Discord, great place to hang out. Great people in there. And then my other podcast, Fresh Juice, I do with my cousin. We talk about indie video games. Fun time over there. Mentioned it last week, but I'm going to be a godfather. That's pretty sick. And that was announced on the pod. So,
Nice.
you get like inside scoops like that on our personal lives. Now, I always like to talk about food. Ted, can you tell me about some food that you want to talk about? Maybe you're craving it, or you had it recently, or it's one of the best meals you ever had.
Yeah, and this is quite recent. Within the last 6 months, Japan. I went to Osaka for Worlds. Dude, there's not a single like food item that I want to talk about, just food in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like that country is crazy, dude. Like it's so nuts. Like everything I had there was amazing. And it just like, it's not like, here in the States you kind of have to like find something, like, oh, let's look up the reviews. Oh, this says it's like the best pizza here. It's just like, it felt like when I was in Japan, it was just like, it doesn't matter where you pick the steak, the Kobe, the Wagyu is just always good. Like it was amazing. And I can't wait to get back to Japan, dude. It was a wonderful experience.
Well, yeah. I only heard good things. I'd like to go.
Yeah.
Like to go. Maybe it's my next big trip. Well, I do have a big trip to Scotland soon.
Ooh.
I'll be there during the Pro Tour. I won't be able to go to the Pro Tour, but I'll have other obligations. But
yeah,
I'll be enjoying myself. But yeah, next big trip. Hopefully that region, Japan. I hear only great things, and a not so great thing is we don't have time for Charmer. But I'm sure we'll get to him at some point. Thank you, everybody. Stay fresh.